Hey guys, just want to show you if anybody's interested on how to take the bearings out of one of these Keiser M3 bicycle. I think they call this a flywheel hub. You can buy a brand new flywheel hub for I think 60 bucks. So that's probably the cheap way to, that's probably like the no hassle way to do it. Or you can just buy the bearings. I think the bearings, I don't know, maybe 10 bucks each. So you need two bearings. But anyway, so the way you get this thing out of here, I should have made a video beforehand, but basically this is the flywheel thing, and then you got two of these bearings, a bearing and then a spacer and a bearing, squeezes all down in here, all down in through there. So so everybody probably knows what it looks like when they're all in there, and it's really hard to get out. So what I tried doing yesterday was just get like something that fits this hole, and you shove something in here and you basically slam down. But let me rewind a tiny bit. What happens is there's a C-clip that holds all this stuff in place. So here's a C-clip. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. If I was going to do this again and money was no object, I'd probably just buy the whole contraption. I think they sell it for about $60. But anyway, so you take out this C-clip, it's in there, and you just use like this guy, and like right in here, there's like a notch. I don't know if you can see it. Let me show you. Dang it. Okay, there you go. See that notch right there? You get a screwdriver right in there and then pry it up. And then basically it's going to be in here, and you pry it up and then you work your way around like this, and it pops right out, and looks like it's still whole. It's probably going to be really fun trying to get this back in there. But anyway, so at that point I took it off, and then I spun it like this, put it on some wood. This is kind of like a weird glass table, don't ask me why. And get like a socket. So this is where sockets that's come in handy, among other things. So what fit real good is a 17 millimeter socket, and you stick it right in the hole. If you get something bigger, that's fine too. Bigger is better, but I think that's as big as I could get. And basically it fits kind of like that, and you slam down, but I don't want to blow out the bearings just in case. So it wasn't giving. I kind of like used a mallet, and basically you kind of like shove it in a hole, and then you slam down on it like this, and it wasn't budging. If I slammed down harder, I would have destroyed the bearings, which is probably not a big deal because that's what I'm here to do. I'm supposed to replace the bearings, but then it'd probably create more problems because the bearing, you got this inner shaft and this outer shaft, it would have split and it would have created more problems. So what I did is I stuck the whole thing in the freezer. Take the whole thing and stick it in the freezer overnight, and it'll contract, metal will contract. And so I think this is aluminum. This thing is aluminum, and that's metal. Anyway, shove the whole thing in the freezer, and I think that helps. But to even make it even easier, it wasn't giving. I would tap it and it wasn't moving. So what I did is I followed it up with kind of like the blowtorch kind of thing, one of these benzomatics. This is really handy, these benzomatics, because it's a one-handed operation. So what I did is just heat the outer portion, kind of like, I don't know if I want to do it. But anyway, so what happens is you take it out of the freezer, and it's more or less ice cold, and since heat expands metal, same concept. The bearings are going to be ice cold, so that would have contracted, and so you want to heat up the hub. So you just kind of like, this is kind of cool because you just turn it up and then you go, and then you kind of do this to it, spin it around and all this other fun stuff. So the hub expands. So at that point it got super easy. So you do this, you go down this way, and you start tapping it out, and it comes out pretty easy, and actually preserves them, so there's no issues. One more comment on the removal. So what happens is, if all that stuff is in there, and you're slamming down, and the bearings will actually start to pop out. You gotta either find a socket big enough. So what happens is, once you start slamming down on the bearings, it's gonna make it down to the table. I don't know if that makes sense, but at some point you need to, the bearings won't come out. You need to either find a socket that's big enough, like that would fit kind of like this, and then as you're tapping down, the bearings have a place to go, so it would actually ride. They'd fall into that socket. But this socket actually wasn't big enough, because if you look, yeah, it doesn't fit all the way in. So I actually couldn't even use that socket. So what I did is I wound up putting it up here, getting a vise, just like, the jaws just enough so that as you tap down, the bearings could actually pop out. Anyway, so just thought I'd mention that. Gonna heat this guy up, clean him out in the inside, maybe put a little bit of oil and heat him up. And the bearings are in the freezer right now. Shit. A little bit of oil. Forgot about that earlier. So, gonna slam in the bearings. These bearings are coming out right from the freezer to help contract them. Gonna spin it just to make sure it looks okay. Okay, these are brand new. Hopefully it's not too hot. Alright, moment of truth. Let's see what it does. Oh, almost goes in by itself. One. Sweet. Spacer. I'll put a little bit of oil in the spacer. Here's my spacer, just to prevent oil, or any kind of rust. A little bit of coat. it in. Second fairing. Just so you know, these are 6203-2Z. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if it goes. You know, I'm going to heat it up a tiny bit. Just for good measure. Okay, these bearings don't have it inside or outside. I doubt. Hey, almost right in there. Fucking A. Didn't even hammer in. I'm gonna tap it in anyway. Shit, that was easy. Okay, now that it's super hot, can't really touch it. And we'll try to line it up on the spindle. Cool. Sweet. So I don't know how this is going to work. This is my C-clip. Clean it off a little bit. I'll put this in the vise. It's kind of locked in here. Let's see what this does. Shit, that was easy.